Jackson gave me the news of a planet far away. And Colonel O'Neill will assemble a team that will try to save the day. Dr. Sam has a master plan and a science attitude. And the Jaffa Teal, he's part of the deal with his trusty Goa'uld. It's just a regular day at Stargate Command, and it might be hard to understand.
Chevron 1 encoded. Chevron 2 encoded. Chevron 3 encoded. Chevron 4 encoded. Oh no, this is gonna happen. Chevron 5 encoded. Chevron 6 encoded. Chevron 7 what? We have a stable world.
Welcome back, everyone, to Three Fries Short.
Hello.
I'm your co-fry,
Hello.
Sarah.
I'm your co-fi, Christina.
And I'm your co-fry, Rebecca.
And we are back with another review episode.
I just call them episodes.
Episode.
It's an episode.
We got to
Love
think of some other episodes to do now that we're back into the groove and we can talk about the wormhole show.
Yeah, for sure.
So before we get into our discourse about this episode,
Discourse. Is it this time is discourse?
I'm calling it. We want to jump in the fry box. We have a couple announcements.
Yep, let's do it.
Short, cause we're three Friday short.
Rebecca, you want to take this one?
Sure.
You're working so hard on these.
Listen, I'll do the first one, and then somebody else can talk about the second one. Okay, because I
Christina.
think it's good for somebody else to
Okay.
be able to have that. But before that,
Yeah.
before the actually potentially super exciting thing, the companion, we have our holiday special coming up in 2 days on Saturday, and it is free and open to everyone. You don't even have to sign up for the newsletter. You can go onto the companion's YouTube site channel right now, and you'll see the live up there and hit the
That's
notification
awesome.
button. So Lawrence and I will be hosting it. We're going to have Brad there with us. I'm going to subject Brad to, among other things, a sock puppet show. So it's going to be an interesting ride.
So good. Has Brad seen the
No, Lawrence hasn't even seen it. Lawrence is not going to see it until Saturday. So I was bound and determined. He does not know, unless he watches this right now, does not know that there is a sock puppet Lawrence. There's a sock puppet Rebecca.
Can you imagine showing Brad Wright from the creators of Stargate a sock puppet show for his holiday special? Was that ever on your list?
No, but it could, like, when you think of the holidays, when I was a kid especially, it was all about, hey, I want to put the show on for the family, and you get your cousins, and I was that kid that put the show on. So for me, the whole sock puppet thing feels very in line with that. But no, Brad's gonna have to watch it. It's gonna be
Brad's gonna freak out.
Hilarious. Yeah, so that is Saturday. Please, everybody come. It's 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. UK time, like all of the companion events. And it is our last big event of the year. And then we have more things coming in January. And that rolls us right into our second fry box piece of news.
Christina, want to take that one away?
I will take that one. So we are very excited that on January 20th, we are going to be hosting with it, like, for the companion, the third installment of Amanda Tapping's Mental Health in the Fandom. We're really honored to be able to, as a collective podcast, take that stage with her. It's going to be super exciting. I'm going to go close my daughter's door because I hear Fortnite rambunctiousness going in the background. So for the sake of everyone's sanity, I'm going to let Rebecca, or Sarah talk a little bit more about it. And I'll be right back.
Yeah, I just think it's, we had her on our podcast. I've done the other mental health events. But this just does feel like, it feels nice for us to be able to, as, part of the companion, the Fries, get to host that event. And I just think it's a topic that's near and dear to all of us. So I think it makes perfect sense for us to have that conversation. And yeah, the last time we talked to Amanda, all three of us, it just felt like we were sitting around a table having a conversation. So I'm looking forward to that.
Which is so cool. Like, I, I'm honored. It's so cool to like one that she's like entertaining the. I'm like, yeah, I'll talk to these girls again. Cool. Like,
Mhm.
not just like those fucking weirdos. No way.
Oh, it's freaking
I mean,
awesome.
she probably thought those fucking weirdos, but like she's kind of a
And
weirdo too
in an
in a lot of ways.
endearing
So,
way,
yeah,
not like
it
a
works.
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
And that is for right now, unless something changes, that will be January 20th, a Saturday.
yes.
Same times as like all the other companion things. There is a small chance that some film thing might happen for her and we would have to reschedule. Hopefully that doesn't happen. I haven't gotten any news yet about it. So we're about a month
I
out
mean,
at this
I
point.
feel like that's pretty understandable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's kind of standard with conventions and everything too. You know, that happens.
Totally.
Especially now that the strike is over and everybody's ramping everything back up pretty
Mhm.
drastically right now. So we
Yeah.
will see. But otherwise, I'll let you know. I'll let you all out there know if it changes for any reason. So
Cool.
yeah, that's it. That's exciting. That's the news.
All
I mean,
right.
that's awesome news. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Are we ready for discourse, Sarah?
Yeah. All right. Let's just go around.
Course.
What are our thoughts on this episode? Rebecca, do you want to start?
I remember why I've only watched this episode like once. I didn't remember much of anything about it until I watched it again today. And I was like, oh yeah. It's kind of I don't know. That's how I feel about it. I don't have strong opinions one way or another. So
Also, the same, like, this was not one I ever like rewatched or cared to rewatch. I was like, oh, that one, whatever.
Mhm.
And I watched it again, obviously, for this episode. And a lot of either I was just like meh the whole time, or I was like,
Or you were meh.
I was a hater.
ugh.
I was a
Um,
hater. I was being a hater.
I feel like your like highest level would have been a meh, and then it went down from there.
Yeah.
yeah.
I do think though that it is an important episode in that it introduces some really important Stargate lore that becomes more and more afterwards. So I
true.
do recognize that was important what they were trying to do with that. So
I will say I also agree that I'm indifferent overall on this episode, but I don't take it in a negative spin. I take it as really important in to the point that we'll get to at the end, Sarah, about where I think the parts that frustrate you about Daniel are the parts that I find important about his process and throughout the rest of his like going through ascension of that is that it is extremely childlike and still very primitive. And it shows his starting point in this process he has to go to. So we'll go to it more. But I like that we got a really good anchoring point on where Daniel's true, I think, spiritual health is and what his path really should look like. Because I honestly think the walkaway winner from this one is Braytak. And I really love Braytak's
Yeah.
space.
Totally.
So more on that toward the end, but I actually find more endearment from Braytak in his journey than anyone else.
yeah, that makes sense.
So for sure. But yeah, so I'm excited to talk about it.
I will say, on further introspection, I think a lot of my problems that I was taking out on Daniel has to do with the structure of the episode. Of like, this was timed horribly, and it's having some like pretty unbelievable stuff happen, or like you're trying to get me to buy into this, and I'm like, I'm not fucking buying it. Like,
Mhm.
this happens in the course of maybe a couple hours, and like, anyway, if that makes more sense. But
It does.
let's just get into it. So
Let's do it.
the episode aired February 5th, 2000. And the overall, like, blurb or whatever, like the tagline or the synopsis of this episode, Braytak, accompanied by his battered Jaffa apprentice, arrives at the SGC pleading for medical assistance. So that's where we kick it off.
Mhm.
We open with this unauthorized incoming wormhole. They do receive a GDO code, and they open the iris. It is Braytak, who is helping a younger Jaffa who is seriously injured. Janet gets him into surgery, and Braytak tells Teal'c that Chulak was attacked by Apophis. And then this is where I heard the TikTok sound of Nicki Minaj saying, "You can't get rid of me, bitch. I ain't going no fucking where." Like, because at this point, actually, we'll get to it. But anyway,
Yeah.
dramatic zoom in on Teal'c's face. They hit us with the opening credits. Cut to the briefing room. Jack is swearing and complaining about Apophis not being dead. So amnesia check. We last saw Apophis in The Devil Went Down to Natu, and he was
Not the official name. Devil Went Down to Natu. It's not the official.
That's the name now.
that's
Just
the
like
three-fry
Thor's
shortening.
wagon is.
and boo tomato tomato.
Yep. Yep.
So Devil Went Down to Natu. It was believed by SG-1 that Apophis had died in the explosion. We, the audience, knew he survived. So like that
That wasn't a surprise
dramatic
to us.
irony. Yeah. So Apophis is now in control of Sokar's army, which is one of the most powerful armies so far.
Mhm.
And he hit Chulak fast, and he took no prisoners. So
Mhm.
SG-1 plus Hammy ponder, like, why would he do this? Because not all of the Jaffa would oppose him, but it would be easier to just wipe them all out instead of weeding out the traitors.
Mhm.
So in the infirmary, Janet has done all she can do for Moak, which is Braytak's apprentice, and he unfortunately passes away, which is a total bummer.
Mhm.
So we have some dialogue between Braytak and Teal'c. Do you guys want to read that?
Totally. Who you want?
I'll take Teal'c.
All right, I'll do Braytak. All right. I'm an old man, Teal'c. One day I wish to spread Moak's ashes on the grave of Apophis, but I do not know if I have the strength to fight anymore.
Many have died, old friend, but their deaths must not go in vain. Word of this must spread to all Jaffa.
Yes, but maybe it is for someone younger and stronger than I to spread that word.
You are the strongest Jaffa I have ever known.
In my 135 years, I have never seen a Gould turn on those that carry its kind this way. He massacred so many that have worshipped him for so long.
Perhaps he has done this to show the system lords how truly powerful he has become.
You know well Apophis has weapons that could have been used from space. There had to be some other purpose. His army swept through Chulak as if...
They were searching for something.
Bum, bum, bum.
Ba-ba.
Which leads us to the deduction of Apophis was looking for the Harcesis child.
Second
again-
amnesia check of the episode. Nice.
Yes.
Mhm.
Apophis fathered a child with Share, the host of his mate Amenet, so Share Amenet. He wanted to create a perfect host for himself. This was frowned upon in Gould Town because the child would contain all the knowledge of the Gould without it will be a human child with
Mhm.
no Gould symbiote, but they would have all the knowledge of the Gould. So it's a
It's a big
very
no-no.
dangerous
Big.
situation.
Mhm.
So Share / Amenet hid the child away to protect it on a planet called Keb. This is where I give you my spell check warning because it kept autocorrecting that shit to kebab. So if you see that,
I look forward to it.
The Harcesis
See
is
a nice-
on kebab.
nice kebab on the grill.
I mean, it's a fitting with the saying that we get out of this episode about
That's true.
the meal has already been cooked. Yeah, it's very fitting.
So Braytak has heard of this place, but he did not think it was real. So we have a plot dump number 1. Who wants to read that?
Mhm. Yeah, I'll just
Braytak.
I'll take Braytak.
Go for it.
Just don't mind if I do not read well. The Gould fear and despise Keb. They forbade anyone from speaking of it long ago. It is something my father once spoke to me, an old tale about a place discovered long ago by a few Jaffa and kept secret from the Gould. When they could no longer carry a primta, they would make their journey to Keb. Their soul would learn the path through the darkness into the next life. When some of the Gould finally found out about Keb, they made their way there. They did not return. It was forbidden to speak of ever again. My father enjoyed telling me this story. If the Gould truly are all-powerful gods, he would say, how is it that they fear anything?
Very good question. Very
Very
mysterious.
big question. Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, Braytak does not know the location. Daniel tells him the only lead that he has is some old mythology that Osiris once hid there from Seth. So Braytek is familiar with this like legend or myth, and he refers to a group of planets that were depleted by mining. It's the solar system that they're familiar with. In the control room, Sam is scrolling through the database of gate addresses. Braytek stops her when she comes to a series of addresses, and he identifies them as the planets in question. There is one gate address that's in red. So we have Carter and Daniel that kind of explain what's wrong with this gate address.
Cool. I'll take Carter.
Go for it.
Obviously.
Obviously. We basically have two reference maps for Stargate addresses. Yellow represents the cartouche that the Goa'uld left on Abydos, and the addresses from the Ancients' original map of the Stargate is in red.
If the legend is true, the Goa'uld never would have included Keb on their cartouche.
Well, this address is the only planet in the system that the Goa'uld didn't include on their map.
We found it.
Whoa, that was so easy. We're like 5 minutes in. So,
Wow, we just ran an algorithm and whoop, there happened to be conveniently one. And that's
So-
perfect.
quick question. When Sam refers
Mhm.
to Ancient's original map of the Stargate, is that the one that Jack did for when he had the knowledge in his brain? Or is this something different that I missed? The Ancient's original map of the Stargate. I don't remember that unless they're referring to the fifth race when Jack was like,
He did dump a lot of gate addresses in there,
yeah,
didn't he? Yeah.
So I don't know if that's what they're referring to, but that's the only thing I can think of.
That's the only thing I
Because-
can think of too.
Yeah, they
Uh,
only have those two
Mhm.
sources. And then like if they just randomly Okay, so that's what they were referring to.
Yep.
Mhm.
So they send him out, and Braytak confirms that it looks like Keb based off of the legends because it was like the mountains in the distance or whatever. So off to Keb
So like
they
British
go.
Columbia.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Look at the pine
So
trees.
Canada. They're in Canada.
A roving film crew in the distance. It must be Keb. So off to Keb they go, along with Braytak and SG-2. It's a race to get there before Apophis does. So they see tracks and they confirm that as a group of Jaffa have come through before them.
Mhm.
Braytak is having like a whole existential crisis because
Mhm.
his clock is running down.
Mhm.
You know, he's like, I'm old as fuck, pretty much. And soon I'm not going to be able to carry a Goa'uld. Which, okay, question. I feel like
Mhm.
they're so inconsistent on Jaffa lore and Jaffa like biology. If a host gets too old, will a symbiote like reject it and be like, I'm getting out of this fucking nursing home? Like, I'm finding a younger host or a younger Jaffa. Is that
Well, they would like
really explained
one
at all?
Jaffa would carry many
Mhm.
Goa'uld symbiotes.
Right. So Braytak specifically said he won't be able to carry a Goa'uld symbiote much longer. So they don't clarify if this is because a symbiote is maturing or if he's getting too old.
I think it's that he's getting too old to be able to carry any symbiote. Like
Mhm.
the plumbing stops working, you know.
Okay.
So like none of them can, you know.
So the symbiote is like, this is a fucking nursing home. I'm getting out of here. Like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
okay. So they continue to track the other Jaffa through the woods, but they come across some very crispy Jaffa bodies.
Crispy.
Well done.
But like just them, nothing
Yep.
else.
Yeah. Carter says it's really weird. These bodies are burnt to a crisp, and yet nothing around them has been touched. It's almost as if the lightning struck. So Braytak finds the body of a priestess woman who was charged with carrying the child. She was shot in the back and the other Jaffa as she fled. His Goa'uld hole is that's disturbingly graphic. Thank you,
His
John.
Goa'uld
John.
hole is drying up.
It doesn't
Yep.
have that nice macaroni textured ASMR anymore.
Oh,
no.
oh
This
my
is
God.
going to be dangerous having all of our friends now in the stream with us.
Yeah.
Just if we pop any comment up there, make sure one of us reads it out loud so the people in Radio Land can know what
Yes.
we're laughing at. So
Yeah.
100%. All right. Whew, sorry,
So-
continue.
They still don't know what happened to the kid. There's no baby child in sight. So we also find out that Braytak is like an A+ tracker because they're even like, how could you tell she was carrying a baby? You're full of shit. But he's like, no, her hands weren't bound together. So obviously, like, if she was just by
Mhm.
herself, they would have tied her hands up. And when she ran away, she was shot lower on her body, like in her lower back, because they didn't want to hit the kid. Which it's like, oh, now the staff weapons are surprisingly accurate with their shot. Okay,
Of course.
makes sense.
Of course they are.
So they continue through the forest and they find a temple and enter this courtyard that's like surrounding the temple. And Braytak refers to it as sacred ground. Jack, Teal'c, and Daniel enter one of the temples and they're greeted by a monk. So the monk speaks in codes and metaphors, which is super fun. Do you guys want to read this exchange?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you want to be the monk, Rebecca, or will that bother you? Or do you want to be Daniel?
I don't. Why would being the monk bother me? It doesn't bother me.
I don't know. Okay. You be the monk.
Do you seek oneness with Dasala?
Dasala. I know that word. It sounds tribal. African, maybe?
Dasala is everything, everywhere.
Nature. It means nature. Jack, he's speaking in the Zen, how do we pronounce that? Khans?
I think
Whatever
so.
theology he follows may be an original basis for Buddhism on earth. So like how did we get from African in like root to then Buddhism? That bothered me in that space.
I also
Very
keep
good.
reading Dasala as Dasalsa, which makes me want some Tostitos, kind of. Are you here
Oh,
for
God.
Dasalsa? Actually, yes, I would like some. Do you have guac too?
I think it's a
God.
good point though that in this episode they felt like they were sending the ancients more towards,
Mhm.
ancient Asian
Mhm.
theology, and then they decide to go a completely different way by the end of the
Mhm.
series. So,
Mhm.
Yeah.
So in the notes at the end, I have a couple like different references pulled from that kind of made me try to make sense of why he would have pulled from a couple different spaces, but we'll get there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So outside in the courtyard is Sam and Teal'c, and there's like some mystical woo-woo stuff happening. There's like a flash of light here, whooshing sounds, and like wind chimes in the background. So Jack tells Sam and Teal'c that Daniel is going to try and see what he can get out of this monk, but it's going to take a while because it's
Mhm.
speaking in fortune cookie talk. So Teal'c is getting the heebie-jeebies from this place. He was like, I don't like that. Like something's not right here. I don't like it. So we cut back inside the temple with the monk, Braytak, and Daniel. I will take whoever doesn't want. I'll take whoever.
I'll take the monk because it goes all the way through,
Okay.
and then
I'll do
I'll take
Braytak.
Daniel. Yeah.
Cool.
cool. Within you is a being whose heart knows only darkness. To Braytak,
Yes.
you must renounce such evil to achieve oneness with Oma Dasala.
Oma, what does that mean?
Words cannot express things. Speech cannot convey the spirit. Swayed by words, one is lost. One cannot carry darkness on the great path.
If I remove the symbiote within me, I would die.
You cannot start the journey with it inside you.
So a Jaffa cannot seek oneness before he is willing to die.
When the mind is freed, the body is no longer required. Since you are not ready to meet Oma Dasala,
I am not ready to die, but I take solace in the fact that the journey is ahead of me.
And then to the monk, Daniel says, "So I don't have to die, right?"
you do not have the same evil within you,
Good.
but you have your own burdens of which to rid yourself.
Mm-mm-mm.
So this is where we get Braytak, like this cool thing
Mhm.
with Braytak, where he was like, he realizes that any Jaffa who comes here, they have to remove their symbiote, and they,
Mhm.
it's basically they're essentially going to die,
Mhm.
regardless whether it's by choice or because they don't have a symbiote anymore. And he was like, I'm not ready for that yet. And it's cool to know that like he knows himself enough to be like, I'm not ready, but I'm glad that I know that the journey is still ahead of me. It's still here for me when I am ready.
Mhm.
And then Daniel, right, he doesn't have a symbiote, so he's like, I'll sign up. Like, what do I have to do? So Braytak goes outside with Teal'c, and he has this new resolve. He's like, I feel like unburdened and I feel like
Mhm.
80 years old again, which is young in Jaffa years. It's like reverse dog years. So Daniel continues with the monk, and the monk asks why Daniel is searching for this boy because he mentions he's looking for this child.
Oh boy.
Here we
Yeah,
go.
We got a chunk going on here.
Yeah,
Here we go.
Hold on, let me sit up straight for this. Here we go.
Yep. Get ready.
there's a couple chunks.
Why do you seek this child of flesh and bones,
He is the son of my wife.
but not your son?
No, but my wife is dead now, and I promised her I would make sure the boy is safe.
And you are sure he will be safe with you?
Yes, absolutely.
Because it is so clear, it takes a longer time to realize it. If you immediately know the candlelight is fire, then the meal was cooked a long time ago.
Right. I have no idea what you're talking about.
So Daniel and the monk are sitting in the center of the room once more, an unlit candle between them. They both have their eyes closed. And then Daniel
Yep.
says,
And he's trying to do it. He says, I can't do it. To light the candle.
You say you seek this child to fulfill a promise.
Yes.
Is there another reason?
The child has knowledge. He can help my people defend themselves against an evil enemy, the Gould.
You hate the Gould.
The Gould are responsible for the death of my wife, among millions and millions of other people. How can I not hate them?
Your hate will lead to the child's death.
How do you know that?
You must trust. You must believe.
Well, maybe what I don't believe is that I can light a candle with my mind. You see, I find it a lot easier to use a lighter or matches.
the monk lights the candle with his mind and then instructs Daniel to blow it out with his mind. So before, like, let's break some of this down because there is some good
Mhm.
stuff in here. As
Yeah.
much as like the riddle talk like pisses me off, I think it's important to point out, where is it? That when the monk says your hate will lead to the child's death. So
Mhm.
being motivated and fueled by hate
Mm-hmm.
can never end well. Like it
Mm.
might
No.
help you out along the way somewhere. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings. How at the end, spoiler alert if you haven't watched the movies, but like at the end, Frodo couldn't destroy the ring. He like fell to its power.
Mhm.
And the message was not necessarily that like good will always destroy evil, but evil will always destroy itself.
Mhm.
So at the end of it, like Gollum's love for the ring, like sent it to its
Mhm.
destruction. So like being fueled by hate and like being motivated by hate is not a healthy or maybe productive approach.
And so, okay, go ahead. Finish your
No,
thought.
go ahead.
I was gonna say the other thing that like I find interesting in like kind of going through this dialogue again is the other part where Daniel is so absolute, without question, that the child would be safe with him. And to that point, that's like the monk's response of just saying, where does he say it? Why am I losing it in the dialogue? Because I want to read it how it was. Oh, because he says, yes, absolutely. And the monk immediately is like, because it is so clear. Like, I find that almost like a sarcasm because it's so clear. It's actually going to take longer to realize it. Like, meaning to Daniel, it is that childlike confidence, that like bravado of sorts of like, yeah. And so the monk's being like, this will be more difficult because he does not have that objective thought. And that leads into that mindset of like the meal being cooked a long time ago. Because like if you immediately know, yes, that it's fire, like if you immediately say yes, you haven't analyzed it enough. And I've been trying to pick apart like what even like randomness that could possibly mean. But I think the fact is like Daniel's immediate confidence without question is exactly the reason why he's not ready. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah.
Mhm.
When you put it like that, like he truly is just set. He's fully convinced that he knows what's best in
Mhm.
not a bad way, because sometimes
No.
it can be bad. But this is like he is truly trying to do good, but
Mhm.
he still has those blinders on,
Mhm.
where he can't see the full picture.
Yeah, and that's I think the whole point of like the meal is cooked a long time ago, just meaning like the decision's made. Like the meal's already cooked, been made. Like you're not ready. Like
Yeah.
you immediately know you're not ready because you shouldn't
Yeah.
immediately know. But anyway, that's my take on it. I'm curious to other people's thoughts, but we can continue.
So the monk says this. He says, "Within you is the capacity for trust. Trust Oma Dasala. Do not believe you can light the candle. Believe she can light the candle." So back in the courtyard, Jack is getting annoyed and decides it's time to come in and talk to Daniel. So we have this dialogue between the two of them. You guys can read that.
Daniel says, Jack, the markings on the wall are a language. It's a Bible. No, actually, it's more of an instruction book on how to reach this ethereal plane of existence, some kind of other world. It's only natural that the Jaffa who found this place would have interpreted it as passage to the afterlife.
Whoa, slow down there, grasshopper.
Reference to the Karate Kid, right? Okay. So Daniel says, okay, I'm pretty sure this place was built by an alien race a millennia ago. They may have even visited Earth, shocker, and inspired the mythology surrounding the concept of Mother Nature in various cultures.
So this guy's an alien?
No, I'm pretty sure the aliens discovered a means by which they could ascend to some higher plane of existence and went there. Now, wherever that is. But they left their writing in a shrine as a kind of map for others who'd want to follow them. The monk is someone who has taken up a curatorship.
And then Jack, I think, refers to him as like, so he's a janitor. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So Daniel shows Jack that he now can light the candle with his mind. And Jack is like, sounds fake. Like, I don't believe you. Which, okay, this is a problem that I have with the episode. They can't have been here for more than a couple hours, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's not like they're setting up tents and shit and like night has fallen and the next day comes like. So I don't believe this fast track to enlightenment. It seems like Enlightenment for Dummies book that you buy at Barnes and Nobles, like to fast
Okay,
track.
but we're gonna talk about it at the
They
end.
should have done a montage. I mean, that would have
Yeah,
that
just
would've
do some
taken care of
like sunset, sunrise. But then that
Mhm.
also wouldn't be sincere either because they've made it clear they're in a race against the other
Yeah.
Jaffa to
That's
get
true.
the kid in time. So I don't think it was set up the best.
No.
So Jack tries bringing Daniel back to reality. The longer they camp out here, the more likely their risk being caught by Apophis. Jack is ready to bust in and just search the place. He's like knocking down walls. I don't give a fuck. And Jack's gun is pulled away from him and it levitates. And Daniel is like, wasn't the monk that did it. It was me. So Jack is a little bit more freaked out, but he's still not fully convinced. Like, again. And I'm so mad they didn't bring Sam in there until like the last fucking scene.
I
Anyway,
know.
Daniel is fascinated with this path to enlightenment and wants to continue, but we hear a noise outside. It's Gould gliders in the area, and Jack orders some explosives to be planted. So he's like, plant the claymores or whatever the fuck they're called. Is that what they are?
Yeah, that
The
works.
C4s. So there's some dialogue between Sam and Daniel. You guys got that.
I love this. Let's go.
You learn the power to control fire.
It's not just fire. All the instructions are here on the walls. All you have to do is be willing to learn and believe.
I'm sorry, but something else has to be going on here.
Why?
I don't know, but under different circumstances, I would bring the right equipment and check for some kind of concealed technology before I assumed.
Isn't there the smallest part of you that wants to believe a person can reach a higher level?
Yes, of course, but
Don't you see what's happening here? I have that power
to do what?
to protect the child. I think she doesn't want me to leave until she knows I understand how to protect him.
Who's she?
Oma de salsa.
Okay, I have a side note to then talk about later, but Daniel is very much in this space. I think the ego and his like almost triggered PTSD of like the fathering, like he has to be the protector, he has to be able to take care, he's got to live up to it. And so I think he's very eager to hook on to the very first sign that he might be able to do it, which I think is what accelerates his like desire to be on this path, is because he feels like it's a like self-fulfilling prophecy, or like fulfilling that prophecy of like, he is the father, he's the protector. Oh, and here's one signal of it. It must be right, which then for anyone in that space mentally will accelerate in like their belief in something. If they have had this worry of like, what if I'm not going to be the one? Show me the signs, make sure like, am I really the one? It's the minute he feels like he's gifted, he's like, aha, and it expands everything. So that's my little note as to why I think he goes so far in. But more on that. More on that. More on that.
I want to believe that, but also I cannot forget how he treated her in secrets when he was like a big fucking pile of dicks to her.
But it's
and
still
mad
his
that-
ego. No, but I'm agreeing with you. It's still
Oh,
a
okay.
dick fucking ego move. It's still this like pride fucking thing. It's all
It's
about
just
him.
instead of it
that
coming
he's
from a
gotta be
place
this-
of
No, it's not about a love for the child. It's about he has to be a chosen one. He has to be important. Like it's very selfish.
okay.
It's very, very selfish. And like the minute he can have this like moment of, so I am kind of dissing on my man in this space, but it's also coming from a like a mental space of like gets him there really quickly, but he redeems himself, sort of. He does. He does.
He learns.
Sort of.
So Teal'c enters the temple. A mothership is landing with 2,000 troops. And then we see a disembodied beam of white light materialize in front of Daniel. Daniel watches this light materialize into the vague form of a woman, Oma de Salsa. She suddenly disappears through a wall, and Daniel walks forward and touches the wall, only to see his hand sink into it. So he pulls back, he's freaked out, but then he bravely steps through. And inside there is a room. De Salsa is seated beside a crib with the baby in it. Which, Rebecca, would you like to tell us what your thoughts were when you saw this baby?
Whose goddamn white baby is that?
That is a rice-skinned, light-skinned baby from the mountains of the Caucasus.
There was
Oh my
no
God.
Caucasian in the making of that baby.
No, not at all. It's like
No.
not even a
It's
little
like,
bit.
hold on. It reminds me of all things a SpongeBob meme. Give me a second.
God. Yes.
But yeah, like how do you get a brown woman and a black man to create that baby?
Oh, well, you know, he's the chosen one, so must be white.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
God. I
please
can't. He is
hold.
albino.
Yeah, let's read some comments a while. I'll try
John
to
has
find
you can achieve enlightenment by buying my book series for only 12 easy payments of $1,000. 100%.
Dianetics. Just kidding. Don't come for me, Scientology people. You
Oh
scare
yeah,
me.
let's not do that.
All right, I'm sending it to the group chat now. Say hello to Ergie, everybody.
Hi,
This is what I think
Ernie.
of when you see this baby.
Well, I can't look at it in the group chat. Rebecca, are you going to put it up?
Yeah.
Can you put it
Thanks, girl.
It's just gonna take me a second. I'm on it though.
Oh my god,
Mhm.
Adam's mom is watching. Hello.
up? Oh, hi.
Oh, keep talking for a second.
I can't. I don't know
Talk
what to
amongst
say.
ourselves.
Talk
But yeah,
amongst
so like
ourselves.
he finally like goes in. Also, can we talk about how Oma Desala looks in this very first episode where we meet her?
No, I don't want to.
Okay, this
It's-
might look really pixelated when I throw it up. We'll see. Yeah.
Oh god, yeah. But
You get
kinda
it.
the
You
vibe,
get it.
yeah. In which
There it
the
is.
baby is the clam, and they're like, how did we get that out of that? Like, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
There's a SpongeBob meme for everything, guys.
I love-
So oh, God, he's so needy. So
okay.
they come back into the temple looking for Daniel, but remember, he just walked through the wall, so they can't find him. And they're like, crap, like, where is he? What the hell? And then Jack sends SG-2, because remember, they
Mhm.
came with SG-2. He sends them
Mhm.
back through the gate to get back up because they're about to get pinned down. So they buckle down and they prepare for a fight. And then your breath stinks. It smells like the
This is about the
grossest
cat. This is
food
not
ever.
part of the show. This is her cat.
He was breathing so nasty and heavy on me. So Daniel goes to take the child, but then he
Mhm.
realizes he wasn't the one doing the magic tricks. It was Oma.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
we want to read that chunk, Christina?
Oh, yes. I didn't do any of it, did I? It was you. I was wrong. I don't have any powers at all. You do. You were showing them to me. That's how you communicate with us. You were trying to tell me the boy is better off here with you. And I wasn't listening.
So Daniel ultimately decides to leave the child with Oma because now he realizes that he is not the best option. Like, oh, the kid coming with me maybe isn't what's best for him. So in the courtyard, the Jaffa troops approached. The monk, I don't autocorrect. The monk tells them to leave and that they're not welcome. Of course, the Jaffa refuse and they demand the boy. And why does it keep? What was I saying that kept correcting it to the name Teresa?
I don't
Teresa
know.
shoots the monk.
They shoot the monk, and they shoot the monk with a staff weapon. Daniel runs out and tells SG-1, like, bro, do not engage, like, drop your weapons. There's something bigger going on here. So Daniel has a piece where he says to Jack, do you want to read that?
Yeah. Jack, if you're ever going to trust me on anything, now is the time. The alien is the one with all the powers, and she is not someone you want to fool with, if you get my drift.
So in the face of the Jaffa, who are aiming weapons at them, they lay down their weapons, and of course the Jaffa are going to get ready to take them all out. But then their blasts are blocked by this white light, who is Oma de Salsa. I'm just running with that, guys. Sorry. Then we see the lightning come down from the skies and strike the Jaffa, so that accounts for the bodies that they found in the woods that were all burnt and crispy. Kebabs. Jaffa kebabs.
Jaffa kebabs.
So we have
That's true. The Daniel was like,
oh yeah,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. So we have this final dialogue that Daniel says to Oma. And I think she's in like her humanoid lady form.
Go
for
Says
it.
you're leaving. Okay, you're leaving. You know that means what? You know that more will come as long as they know the boy is here. I'll see both of you again someday, right? And then she touches his face.
Yep.
Before leave, and then they leave. She leaves with the baby.
So back with SG-2, the gate just activates out of nowhere, and they see this white light. And Jack is like, do not engage, do not bother that thing. Let it go. Like, don't engage with it. Let it pass. So Oma leaves with the child through the Stargate. Back at the temple, SG-1 is like, all right, Daniel, put your shoes back on, pack it in. We're going home. And they leave. And that was the end.
Daniel just is walking away like he's just leaving this like spiritual camp, this like yogi retreat. He's just like in this whole other like vibe. So yeah. It's an episode.
It's an episode.
I think a lot of it was like filler. Like a lot of his interactions with the monk were filler. So like we really breezed through that. There wasn't a lot to really talk about, which kind of like it's one of those nothing burgers that we get.
But I think it's important if you think about the characters that were in it. Like it definitely anchored Braytak to breathe new life, because I think probably throughout the series, like there needed to be a re-energizing like purpose. He needed to have some sort of complexity. So I appreciate that they like gave him that space and gave him some autonomy about his path and his choice. Like I think that was really important in this episode. I think that showing Daniel to be a little bit still aloof, but like eager to go down this like mental spiritual path was important. We see the links that Apophis will go against his own like soldiers of sorts to get to the end all be all. That very war seems very similar to what's going on right now with like Israel and Palestine. That very like no excuse, just brutal force to get to the answer. Like I think we see a lot of important characteristics in people that we hadn't seen or like exposed before. That's what I
Yeah.
get out of this episode.
I agree. I think Braytak was like feeling really bummed out and like worn down.
Mhm.
He just lost his apprentice. So it was this younger Jaffa he was training. He was really bummed out about that, and just like to see the destruction of Chulak altogether,
Mhm.
which it felt so senseless. And it was like, what was the point of that? Like, there are a lot of Jaffa, a lot of Chulak is still with Apophis. So,
Mhm.
and then he says it a couple times. He's like, I'm getting too old, or like, I'm 180 or 130 years old. And
Mhm.
then after he has his interaction with the monk, he feels a little bit more energized, I think, because he knows that there's an option for him other than
Mhm.
just dying. There's this option to
Mhm.
come to Keb. So I do like his development and his contribution to this story.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Christina, do you want to go over the notes that you put in?
Yeah. So just a couple so we're gonna move to like themes, discussions, just topics. One thing I found interesting that I was curious and I went down is when they go into the temple. So obviously, like a theme here is spirituality, but very confused spirituality because they really didn't tie it into one space, but it was more just kind of a bunch of different things. Daniel thought, maybe it was African, but then we go and it's like this more like Asian inspired, but then like we're not really sure. So I found it interesting when they went into the temple, there was a star with sand that they were in that the monk put them in, and it was very distinct shape, and it's the eight-sided star, which I call it like I think they call it like the 8-2 because it's made out of two squares, and that's really an important star shape for different religions. So I found that really interesting that they put that there. I'm sure out of intention or not, but that star shape, particularly in a couple of different religions, for Hindu, and I'm not an expert on these things, so like if I misspeak or say anything, disclaimer all across the board, I would love someone else to email us or like have discussions if I say something wrong, like this is just out of my research on it. But one of the Hindu goddesses, so it's, and I'm not going to say it right, Lakshmi, it's the star of Lakshmi, and it's the mother goddess, which is Mother Nature. And I thought that was really interesting, that star representation. But also in Buddhism, it represents the balance of opposites. So I also thought that was really interesting, that star being there, especially because we were talking about this like grave, like evil with like this light enlightenment. So I just thought that was a fun little fact in there, because that is the star that was the sand pit essentially that they were sitting in, where Daniel thought he was superhuman but was not. So I thought that was fun. There's a link in here, but we don't need to go through it all. But it was just all the different religions that use similar symbolism. And to Daniel's point of like, if Keb was this place that kind of for us feels like it has a mix of religions, if you flip it, it's like maybe it was just this origin place, and then as it spread across the galaxy or the universe, like all these different variants came from it, from this like mother goddess mindset. So just a talking point, which I thought in this space of opposites, because here it's this enlightenment and spirituality to get you to this ascension. But then we have this other religious totalitarian, like dictatorship of the Jaffa and like Apophis, and essentially a different type of religion that is just in full war and death mode to the extreme. So I found that interesting also to be represented in this episode, because one is about literally killing everything in your path, and the other one is about literally saving anyone and everyone to get to a higher plane. So that was my point. And then we can get to my bold note, Sarah, your topic, which I said, y'all need to not hate on my Daniel, because I read the notes that they had put in before I got here. And they're very valid points, though.
Whoa, no
Oh,
notes
well,
for
Sarah
me.
put in. Sarah put in.
Me.
But
It was
they're
all
very
me.
valid.
My hands are up.
I'm a hater.
But they're very valid. And I'll say this, and then
They are valid.
they are very valid. But I do think that
Vindication.
Daniel quickly humbled himself, just as quickly as he gloated himself up. Like I think he came down real quickly. But he did this real quick. So
He
Sarah,
went on a roller coaster ride. So
he
okay.
sure did.
This is this was the part of the episode where I wasn't at my meh. I was at my meh.
You were.
And I kind of just ranted. I was like, can we talk about how insufferable Daniel became when he thought he was telekinetically doing stuff? It gave me the
fair.
ick so bad. He was so smug and pretentious, and he had his shoes off the
Totally.
entire time with his feet out and everything, which is weird.
But that's what you're supposed to do out of respect.
I
Okay.
don't know. The kids these days are like, put those dogs away. I don't want to see those grippers.
There was like no reason.
Yeah.
There was no reason to me why he had to be completely barefoot and not keep his socks on.
Well, in
You have
sand,
to
I
be
get it
one
though.
with this. To be one with it.
He was in
I
a
get
sand pit. I wouldn't
Yeah.
want to wear socks in a sandbox.
True.
It was still weird. And then thankfully he gets, maybe I was a little too expressive, violently humbled by realizing that it wasn't him at all, but it was the spooky ghost space nun, Oma Dasala. I also hate how quickly Daniel buys into this, which Christina has thoughts on.
Mhm.
But it was like all critical thinking went out the window. He sees the monk do telekinetic stuff and is like, oh yeah, it must be the Enlightenment, I guess. And at the end of the day, Daniel is still a scientist. And it felt like he threw all of that out the window, which I think I was being a hater on Daniel, but I also think the structure and timing of the episode is also to blame because it felt too fast for it to happen that quickly. Again, we're talking the course of a couple hours here. He's reading all these walls on the cave or the temple wall. He's
Mhm.
going from like in 1 hour he can telekinetically light a candle and then be that smug and pretentious about it.
Maybe
No,
that's
thank
why
you.
he
Wait,
is.
wait.
He's like, it only took me an hour. I
But
got
this,
this.
but
I'm
this is
so-
my
like,
thought. Okay, but this was my thought around the fulfilling prophecy because if he's been going down this path of like protector of the child, he promised his wife that like he would do it, and it's his destiny, like it's his like supreme calling. If he just needed a little validation to literally make his ego explode, like and that's why he got there so quickly because it's like the minute that's my opinion, obviously it's right, but it's right, that I do think that's the justification, if we would say, of like how he got there so quickly, because I think he's just been mulling on it for so long that he had it in his head that like he is the destined caretaker for this child and he's going to be given whatever he needs to do it. He never thought for a second he wasn't the one that was going to take care of it. So you're going to feed on things that like make this appear to come to life. But if you read back in the episode, or I don't read back, if you go back, the monk even says, don't believe you can do it. Believe Oma Dasala can do it. He even tells him.
mhm.
But he
It was
just
an open book test
won't.
and he still did not.
He failed, which is why the meal was cooked a long time ago, because like he just wasn't ready. But that's my thoughts on like how quickly he did because of this specific thing. I think that if it wasn't related to the child and it was some other space and it wasn't related to this like mission that he thought he had to be in charge of, I do not think he would have bought in as quickly. I think he would have critically thought it through and approached it differently, which I think he has in other episodes, not maybe about ascension and enlightenment, but he very much questions things. But when it was about him and his destiny, he was super blind to it.
Yeah. And I think like I was kind of frustrated that Sam only got that one scene in the temple where she was like, I would like do some tests. Like obviously I want to believe that this cool ass shit could happen, but like I'm not just going to blindly, like I'm a lady of science, man. Come on. And like, aren't you too? So that's kind of where I fall on a lot of this stuff too. It's like I want to believe like really cool stuff like that could have like ghosts and Bigfoot and aliens and stuff, but like it kind of sounds fake too. So like I'm right in the middle there. I trying to think what else.
I don't know. I'm giggling at John's comment here.
What is it?
Which one?
That he had premature candle lighting.
That one.
Yeah. He got like he humbled himself, and I do think it like put him back a few steps, you know, like he's got things to learn.
It reminded me of like this kind of meme or whatever where it's like, you know, a 30-year-old dude does a shroom trip and feels like basic human empathy for the first time in his life and thinks he's like enlightened. And it's like, I've felt that as a 7-year-old child, like you're not special. And that's kind of the vibe that I got from this whole like smug, enlightened attitude. Like, you've been here for 4 hours, dude. Like, chill.
And now it's your whole personality.
Oh no. This is our first interaction with an ascended being. So this is a very like landmark episode in that regard. So this I thought was interesting. Anubis, who becomes a major adversary later in the seasons, is mentioned obliquely when Braytak tells the SGC that the Gould or a Gould went to Keb and never returned, which I thought was really cool. Because I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that does like totally make sense.
Yep.
And then like the only semi-serious theme that I could think of was like doing what is best for somebody else or the greater good, even if it's to your detriment or disadvantage. Like Daniel wants to take this child. He thinks he is the best option. Or maybe he's like blinded by that ego. But at the end of the day, he realizes maybe I'm not the best option. And maybe it would be better left to this ascended space nun. So I think about that a lot, where it's like self-sacrifice is so like people kind of put it on a pedestal of like, oh, you like, whether it's in something of like being a parent of like, oh, you sacrifice so much of yourself and you lose who you are and all you are is a mother. And it's like kind of glorified, but in reality, it's really sad. It's like you lose everything that you are just to fulfill like this role as a parent. And it's like, if you don't do that, you're a bad mother. You're shamed for it. And there's other things too, where it's like in so many movies, like self-sacrifice is glorified. And I think of that and I'm like, I wouldn't want to, like, I want to live. I don't want to die. Like,
no. And that's the thing, like, it's hard, like, so like as a mom or as a single parent, but even in the like, it is very important to carve out me. And that, like, there's a lot of people, it is glorified to just like lose yourself and that becomes your identity. And what are you going to do when they go off to college, when they go and move out and have like, you have nothing. You've made your whole thing about them. That's not healthy. But
it also makes me think of like when people are like, oh, like describe your mother, like tell us about your mom. And all it is like, oh, my mom did all this for me and she always had this and she always did this. And it's like, so you're literally just describing the things that your mother did for you. Who is she as a person? Do you know what music she likes? Do you know? And I think that's kind of like the result of being consumed by this role and self-sacrificing to the point of like, you're not even a person anymore.
Well, and that's like, it sets you up for failure in relationships. Because if you think about how you show up in relationships, if you feel like, oh, I have to give up everything in myself to be in this loving relationship because I never, like, okay, to your point, that's following that thought process of like asking someone about their mom and all they talk about is what they did for them, but they don't know anything about who she is. It's the same in a relationship. You're only going to look at it as like, what are they doing for me? You're not going to learn to look at who they are as a person to love it in like this two-way space. And it's really, I think as parents, it can get tempting to be like, I just want them to have everything they want and I don't care. Like, and they don't share about themselves and it really sets them up for failure. Like, I want Ryder to know like all the good, the bad, the ugly. And I think it's like we try to sit down and have conversations like, oh, I really love this music. What are your thoughts on it? What do you think about this? Because otherwise, yeah, she's not going to know how to show up in a relationship because I had a hard time with that.
Yeah. And then people said like, okay, let me see if this is going to make any sense. Like, I've seen like these like men on the street interviews, which are not very, I know they can be crappy, but like if you if say like you are married to somebody, you have a kid,
Mhm.
who do you put first in the family? Do you put your spouse first or do you put your child first? Because this
Oh.
is a very controversial topic. And Christina, you might give a different answer like as a single mother, but I would be interested to see like because I already know what I think the answer is. Or
Oh.
my personal answer. So like you are married or like whatever the relationship is like, you're
Yeah.
married, you have children. Do the children come first or does your spouse come first? As far as like relationship wise or like priority wise.
I think of it this way, and I'm going to relate it to the airplane analogy of you have to put your mask on first before you can put it on your child. So I view it that way. If I am in a committed relationship and this is my partner, this is the person I'm making decisions with for the rest of my life, and I trust that we are in it for the betterment of our family and like truly in it for like our kids, for all the things, that comes as a priority so that we're not divided. We can be unique and different, but that pulse check, that vibe check with them is critical as a priority. But that doesn't make me feel like my kids are next. I make them the priority so that I can save my kids. Because just like in a plane, like if I put the oxygen on them and then I die, how does that help them?
Yeah.
That's my view on it. Like
What
that's
would you say, Rebecca? Like, how would you answer that question?
I don't know,
Mhm.
because I don't know. My joke answer was, "I'm putting myself first. Screw everybody else."
I
But
like
that's
that
kinda true
answer.
though. But that's like it's not wrong though. Like you are still a person and you cannot save someone else if you don't save yourself. So like I don't like that question about the partner, but I also understand it. It's important because it's a big therapy question too because if you're not balanced in the same spot, like and I think it can shift over time. I think there can be periods of time where the kid has to come first because there's
Oh
just
yeah.
things that have to get done. But in a bigger picture, investment in the partner and the relationship and like being unified or taking care of that should be with the intention of the betterment then of the children, like watering and like planting the seed and letting it grow. Like that's the natural flow of it. But if I cut my partner out and just keep going straight to the kid, what does that do?
Exactly. So what I've observed, you obviously get one of two answers. You'll
Right.
see people say, "Oh, my kid comes first, always 100%. I would die for my kid. My kid, my kid, my kid."
Mhm.
Leaving out your spouse completely. And I think to me the correct answer is you put your spouse first because you're in this together. You are raising the kids together. And it's like when that kid grows up, your spouse is in an ideal world, of course. They're going to be the one with you to the end. You chose this person.
Mhm.
Also, if you put your energy into having a healthy relationship with your spouse, the kids get to see what that good, loving relationship is like, and you model that good
Mhm.
relationship for them. So
Mhm.
it kind of leads back to the topic of self sacrifice. Some people
Mhm.
sacrifice their relationship with their spouse for
Mhm.
their kid, where it's
Mhm.
like, I loved you so much, my marriage went to garbage because I put everything into you. And then it creates like weird dynamics between like
Yeah.
kids and their parents. Like,
Oh, God, yeah.
so kind of leading back to that whole self sacrifice topic where it's like,
Mhm.
sometimes you have to sacrifice your ego. That's
Mhm.
like, that's more of a
Mhm.
sacrifice than some of this other stuff because I think some people might get a martyr complex of like I know my mom did. Look at all I gave up for you. Look at all that I've done for you.
Oh.
Martyr me, sainthood, like canonize me as the patron saint of narcissistic mothers. But it was that whole like, look at all I've done for you. I've sacrificed so much. And it's
Mhm.
like, okay, well, I didn't ask for that. I didn't
Yeah.
ask you to do
No.
that.
No.
You're the one who wanted a kid. So
Yeah.
yeah, just the thought of like self-sacrifice, but not to the point of like where you're, it's not like Iron Man at the end of the Avengers where it's like he literally dies,
Mhm.
but maybe like a little bit of ego death is healthy
Mhm.
every now and then.
I agree. I think John's comment just now, for me, it's a bit of both. You need to have a balance of it being about who needs to be on center stage, depending on the situation, 100%.
Yeah.
That can only, though, still happen if there's a fair investment in kind of how things go. You have to be a unified front to be able to make those decisions. Like, I don't know. It's a great question, Sarah. I'm glad you asked that, because I had this conversation recently with someone, and it's honestly it can be a make or break, you know. And like, no harm to someone who says like their kids always have to be first, but like that just ain't gonna be for me, and you're gonna end up keep going down the path. They do need to be the priority, 100%, but you have to make space if you're
And
gonna
there's a
want
lot
someone
of
in your life.
Yeah, there's a lot of different dynamics too. Obviously, like with a blended family, with like a step
Mhm.
parent, you bring other kids, like that definitely changes the
Absolutely,
dynamic. So
100%.
if you're, that question is more pertaining to like a nuclear family where it's like
Yep.
you're with the person who you had the kid with.
Right.
But yeah, and again, like I've seen, I think a lot of it that you see people answer, my kids come first, are mothers. It's women who say that. And I think
Mhm.
that's again because they're so like conditioned by society to be like, you have to sacrifice everything, including your marriage, to be a good parent if that's what it takes. And if
Yeah.
you don't, you're a bad mom. Like you suck because you care more about your marriage than your kid, which is really toxic.
I do think there's like a caveat in that space of making sure that there's also not this like, just because you say the kid isn't like first doesn't mean like they're last. Like, I am
Mhm.
wholeheartedly, the fact that my partner comes in a unified front first is purely so that I can have a healthy dynamic for my child to flourish in. It's selfishly still to provide that same environment, um, because I want to set the right example. So it doesn't mean you don't do the things that your kid needs. It just means that you're doing it with decisions made together, not divided.
Okay, I have another question for you, and then I
Yeah.
think we can be done if we don't
Yeah.
want to keep dragging this out. So
Yeah.
I'll preface this by saying I hate seeing this trope in TV shows,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of medical shows, where
Mhm.
you have a pregnant lady
Mhm.
who's sick with something else, and she's like, "You need to save my kid. I don't care if I die. You need to save this baby."
Are you
And
trying to
me,
trigger me?
I'm not. So you don't have to answer this if you don't
It's
want
okay,
to.
Allian. No,
But
it's
I'm
fine.
just gonna say, if that was me, Adam, if you're watching this, you save me. But that baby has no, you saved me. None of this whole like literally the most um ultimate form of self-sacrifice of like,
Mhm.
I don't care if I'm in a vegetative state, don't unplug me until this baby is out. And I see that trope a lot. It's like Grey's Anatomy or like those medical shows.
I think that one is extremely nuanced, but I do agree with you that the trope is extremely oversaturated and not balanced.
Mhm.
I don't think the nuance is shown, to be fair, because I think that at different points in my life, I would have been both sides of the same situation. I think there are times and situations now that I would 100% sacrifice myself for her all day long. I would 100% as a mother sacrifice myself every day of the week. That being said, as you guys know, when I was pregnant, I didn't really have a choice. I went into surgery and they took her to save my life, and I did not have autonomy on that decision in a way, because it just happened so quickly
Mhm.
that they were like, either you both die or some, like, there was no choice. I think if I had had time to pause, I think I would have, knowing myself, I think I would have said that they live. I think I personally would have done that, because I previously in my life have said the other, and that's based on my unique intersectionality going into that scenario and the guilt I carried from my trauma of the kind of like abortion stuff from before and the forced narrative in that space. I think I would have felt right in my soul if I had been given that option to say, for this scenario, I tap out. this light needs to go on. But that was unique to me in the scenario that I came to the table with. And I wish scenarios of that nature would be shown more in shows rather than this obligatory, just like normal maternal state causing that mindset. Because like, even though I agree with kind of the trope that's been done, that would have been my decision. I don't agree with how they got there. Like, I don't agree with the pretense behind it.
Yeah.
Because again, I also think that without my other experience prior, I would have felt this obligation to do that.
Yeah. It
To
is
right my
incredibly
soul, you know?
nuanced. It's incredibly nuanced and situational. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying this now, but then like
Mhm.
who knows what could happen when I'm in that, or if I ever am in that
Yeah.
situation. I could change my mind quickly. But I just hate how it's portrayed on television.
Agreed.
Like, it truly
Agreed.
is, you see that more often than not, of like, I'll make the ultimate sacrifice and
Mhm.
my blah, blah, blah. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I want to see like a more realistic portrayal of like the woman
Yes.
shouting at her, you better not let me fucking die. Like, I'll haunt you.
Absolutely.
I will haunt you.
Absolutely. And I think that's a very valid representation that should be out there.
Yeah. And again, I'm not trying to shame anyone
No.
who has that viewpoint, but don't shame me for like being selfish. The
Exactly.
selfishness of wanting to live, God
Exactly.
forbid. So yeah, that's all I've got for this. Are there any other thoughts?
Well, no, I think that's a pretty heavy note to end on, per usual. Thank you, everyone, for
Sorry.
coming to Maternal Instinct. And we shit on Daniel, and then we talk birthing trauma.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. No, I think I'm good. Is it my turn to close it out? Whose turn?
Oh wait, can we do my cryptic image? I forgot.
Oh, yeah.
Do your cryptic image. Yes.
If anyone doesn't know what this is where I come up with cryptic images that if you didn't know what this episode was or didn't watch this episode, you would have no idea what this means or what this looks like. So does everyone understand? Does anyone
Well,
want to take
yes.
some guesses?
Obviously, Finder is Daniel not putting his shoes back on.
Yeah.
Sister Act is Oma Desala. Crispy Starfish is
Crispy
the dead
Patrick.
is the dead kebab Jaffa. And then
And
of course,
Apophis. Yeah.
Yeah.
yep, we got it.
She legit did look like Whoopi, like in that habit. It
Mhm.
Yeah.
looked like, I was like, damn, Sister Act 2, back in the habit. Oma
We got
Desala.
this. Okay.
Yeah.
Shoot, I should have prepared because I feel like this is the one I need to close out. I should have
Yeah.
prepared.
That definitely is a you one.
Okay. I'm just gonna have to come up with that on the fly. Are we ready?
Mhm.
Okay. Oh, wait, no, I need a minute.
Wait,
Hold
can I give
on.
you an idea?
Yes, give me an idea. We
If
might
the
be on the
iris
same-
was closed long before
Yeah,
the meal.
yeah, I was going there.
Okay.
Okay, I was going there. But I have to write it so I don't mess it up. So just like give like a hot take on something for a moment.
Oh, can I give my hot take on Reba McEntire?
Yes.
Do that real quick.
I'm fully convinced that if Reba McEntire watched Stargate SG-1, she would be a Sam Jack shipper. Why, do you ask? I have this random opinion. Because if you watch her music video from 1993, The Heart Won't Lie, with Vince Gill, they are like cosplaying military people who are in love and can't be together. So I will now be accepting your fanfic submissions. Thank you.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I mean,
Okay.
fair point though.
She didn't have to make it military. The song itself alluded nothing to like that at all. So
Yep.
she made a creative choice. And I remember watching a special where they were talking about like how unhinged her music videos were back in this like 90s and 80s. And Vince Gill does this duet and he's like, God damn it, she's gonna want to do a music video, isn't she? And sure enough, he's like, oh, fine, okay. Her music.
But are we getting a novel out of this?
No, I had to rewrite it. Hold on. My dyslexia. Hold on.
Have nothing else.
Okay,
No
we're good.
more
Okay, you ready?
unhinged
No, it's
theories.
not that complicated. It's not that complicated.
Next episode, if we do an episode, by
Oh
the
yeah,
way,
what is it going to be?
Crystal Skull.
Ooh.
More Daniel.
I love this. Okay. Are we ready? It's not that complicated, guys. This is not like, do not be excited.
Okay.
Do not be excited.
Okay.
Okay. All right. If the iris is closed, the kebabs were cooked long ago.